Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Members of the panel, thank you for being here. I wish I had more than 5 minutes. This has been very interesting and stimulating. Mr. Wilkes, I want to start with you. Coming from North Carolina, there's a lot of need in my district, where we are the proverbial small town America that is receiving dozens and dozens every day, people moving out of the bigger cities into these local communities. And I want to touch on a point that you raised earlier, the need to streamline the delivery of dollars and real results to the taxpayers, to these programs. And if you could just, I would say, identify what the main issue is with the delays, with the inefficiencies in the system, and how we could address that so that the taxpayers get a more immediate return on the investment that we send up for transportation.
Yeah, thank you. In my 19 years, permitting has always been an issue. In the West, a lot of huge federal presence is going to be different than in your. But if you're dealing within an existing right-of-way, so a lot of what we do is non-virgin territory, the ability and permitting should be relatively easy so that you can improve an existing road, whether it's safety or widening, and that isn't uniformly accepted. Under NEPA, categorical exclusions, broadening that would be helpful. BLM and Forest, different administrations have different focuses on different things. And then if you're doing grants, and Mr. Hansen wrote to it, if you're going to apply for a grant, let's make it simpler, easier to comply with. Application is easy. It's actually when you get the grant that is harder. So anything we do to simplify that, make it easier to do would be valuable.
Would you say that the issues arise from overlaying or overlapping regulations, or is it inefficiencies within the delivery system? How would you pinpoint the root problem?
Yes. It's a little bit of everything. You know, sometimes it's overlapping jurisdictions. Sometimes it's just the boxes you've got to check to get through. I wish there was a simple answer, and that's why it's not easy to simplify. But we have to trust our local government partners. And if we don't trust them, then say that. But don't say we trust you and then make you jump through 15 hoops. Trust local government. We're elected to represent our people and be good stewards of tax dollars.
It seems like the perverse incentive is it consolidates all of the approvals in Washington. And then there's all types of justifications for the delay at the cost of local needs and certainly towns like North Carolina. I also want to talk to you just briefly about disaster-related needs to rebuild. If you could pinpoint any kind of solution to, there's a disaster that wipes out a road, how can we better deliver a federally funded recovery project in those instances?
Fortunately, I haven't had to deal with one directly, but all the recent instances have made us think more about it. I think the key is to make sure we don't have to jump through too many hoops so we can be quick. Yep. Speed is what's important, accountability is important, but you can't do it without federal dollars. We need those federal dollars when a disaster hits a county, so we need the flexibility to implement it without jumping through too many hoops, waivers of some of the requirements so you could sole source when necessary without doing the bidding, and some of that exists. But it is a challenge to blend that. You generally got the state involved, but continue to make those funds available, allow the flexibility and speed to be able to respond.
Great. Mr. Hansen, just briefly, in regards to the last, I would say, 5 years, there's been a fairly unprecedented assault on law enforcement, on local law enforcement especially. What effect has that had on road safety and the ability to protect the roadways?
Thank you for the question, and Mr. Chair and members, it's had a negative effect. Law enforcement is taxed in ways that I could never imagine when I worked in the field. Agencies are critically short-staffed, and when they're critically short-staffed, oftentimes the first thing that gets cut is that traffic unit. 911 calls have to be answered, I get that. But traffic enforcement and traffic safety activity is as much a part of any public safety strategy as policing is. And so we need to continue to rebuild the ability for agencies and the ability for communities to understand why traffic safety is important.
Thank you.